Chapter 3. The days following the incident at that horrible old city were filled with what had become commonplace in my life. The silver-haired, green-eyed being that took the form of a young girl, flirtatious as ever, boarded at my home, thankfully still left alone by the rest of my family for some time yet to remain. It should be obvious by this point, however, that common in my life was anything but, for these days were filled with sleepless nights, made restless by the constant scratching and clawing of rodents inside the walls, shrill, tittering noises in the space in between rooms, even though I could find no evidence of an infestation of any sort in the bedroom. Worse were the dreams, vivid delusions of a twilight-tinged abyss filled with obscure, incomprehensible shapes, a void in which I moved in a way I could not understand, past things both organic and inorganic, until inevitably some polyhedron would take notice of me. A simple act that would fill me with fear and wake me with a jolt to find myself bathed in a cold sweat. I was content at this time to keep my mind occupied with observation. Though I detested playing along with the fake girl's constant advances, I kept it up only out of fear of what it would do to me if I gave any indication towards consent. The creatures I encountered did not limit themselves to vile, grotesque monsters intent on attacking or capturing me, for I soon met a tiny thing that the outer god kept as a pet. Though I had met it before in a different form, the shantuk appeared now as a tiny great-bodied thing, not much larger than a common rooster, black, bat-like wings, 2 scrawny talons, and a head somewhere between a horse and a hippopotamus. My companion insisted that its pet was cute and harmless, but I was filled with a paralyzing fear as the terrifying thing nuzzled up to my ankles in a gesture of affection, and it is only out of the desire to appease that malignant deity did I dare to reach out and touch it. On one particular day, after shuffling my way to school with that heavy, oppressive presence clinging to my arm, I walked into the classroom to find my fellow students in quite a stir. A familiar sense of fear assaulted me as we were informed by a girl that the cause for the commotion was the announcement of another transfer student entering our class. The classmate, known for being a collector of information and wont to having her notepad and pen at all times, had dug around for details of this new student, purportedly a girl with red hair tied up in tails, and a cool disposition. With a sideways glance from the silver-haired girl that betrayed a hint of dread, my foreboding sense of fear was confirmed as the teacher called us to attention, announced the new student, and opened the door. The familiar form of the fiery great old one entered the room, and one could note an immediate rise in the temperature in the air. It strode across the front of the classroom and took to the task of writing its name on the board. Like the silver-haired visitor did some time before, the crimson being used my family name in introducing itself, but plainly wrote its true name for everyone to read, and a collective cringe, stare, and unrest spread through the class as everyone read the name Sithujur. The thing's introduction was less of a mockery as was my companion's was. It seemed this particular deity was content in being short and frank, though at this time I was unaware of how serious its declaration of love was for the being that had arrived some time before it. Both the former new student and I recoiled from the frightening turn of events, though I was still unaware of just what exactly boiled and brewed between the two gods. I found myself outside after its introduction, pulled outside by the old pharaoh with that great fiery being also dragged in tow. It demanded an explanation out of the great old one, how the thing that had worked with that fearful hunter in capturing me not too long ago could present itself in front of us again after being bested in that other dimension. The living flame informed us of an incident that allowed it to join whatever outer space organization that my protector identified itself as a part of when it first arrived. The explanation of the incident the creature delivered to us is not something I can recall easily, as the dizziness of the discussion had already taken its toll on me, but I will record as best I can the reason for this thing's appearance. It told us of an individual that had apparently slaughtered a number of deities in some place it called the Dreamlands, of impending danger if this thing was not stopped, and of the need of his assistance. This story was too much for me at the time, for lost in this discussion was the nonchalant, almost afterthought of a remark that the Inferno incarnate would also be taking residence at my home. It is at this time that I find it appropriate to remark on certain behavior from these two deities. Though the event which brought about its revelation was whispered to me by the classmate mentioned before, the source was the information dealer with a knack for writing her daily observations. The girl noted an extreme forwardness in the girl's changing room from the red-haired form to the silver. She insisted this affection to be genuine, greatly reminding me of my own relationship, although in reverse, with the original arriver. What is truly shocking, however, is the fiery elemental's tendency to wish for children. I had heard of this before from the outer god, and dismissed it to be its normal mockery and jest. But could it be true? My knowledge from that cursed book I read at Miskatonic University indicated that these things had normally transcended the need for reproduction through lifespans humans could not fathom, and only created offspring when the need for population of new areas arose. But could this situation was different? Was it possible these things saw interest in combining species to create some new life form? Whatever grotesque, maddening ritual such an act demanded would be the subject of many terrifying nightmares in the days to come. Later that day, the repercussions of the incident that had brought the Burning One to this planet found me on the roof of the school, much like the ancient hunter had just days earlier. The foreboding crimson-stained sky appeared once again, as it usually did with these events, and from it came a number of creatures with an offensive aura that rooted me to the ground. The night gaunts, apparently serving some new master, were joined by furry, bipedal creatures, humanoid in nature but with beastly faces and a row of sharp teeth, said to be ghouls by my silver-haired companion. I managed to take a step back from the group of monsters, to give the two girl-like figures room to dispatch the things, but it was the small bat-like creature that darted forward first. Its futile attack was quickly halted by a night gaunt, which sent it sailing back in my direction, and indeed directly in my face. The easy-looking throw from the strong monster sent the shantuk into my face with such force that I was blown back off my feet. Though it was a manageable amount of pain, it put me in a daze that made me unsure of what I next witnessed. The two deities sprang forward to deal with the group of assailants. Out of the corner of my eye, I witnessed them produce the usual otherworldly, destructive apparatuses used to dispatch enemies. The outer god reached down and pulled a device similar to a chainsaw, though from where or how it appeared in its hands I could not tell, whether it was due to the blow I had sustained prohibiting me from catching the trick, or if it was pulled out of some dimension or geometric angle. Similarly, the great old one lifted the hem of its skirt, revealing a number of gun-like devices that floated in the air, though instead of bullets, they produced beams of yellowish light that burned their targets. Again, whether the inflicted daze had confused me from seeing the event proper, or if those contraptions were released from a part of his body, I do not know. Of what I am sure is the brutal carnage the two things produced, the litter of amputated body parts, pools of blood, and burnt fur or flesh or organs, a sight that surely would have driven me sick had I made more sense of it. After that event, I vaguely recall being escorted to the nurse's room, though when I regained my senses I was already back at my seat in the classroom, curiously free from both oppressive auras. I relished this fleeting, ordinary moment, when the whispers in my head seemed quieter than usual and the queer uneasiness in the air did not exist. How much time I could spend peacefully like this in the future, I did not know, but I had already come to terms with the idea that these rare situations were meant to be savored. By the time I came out of my reverie, I was being escorted out of the building with the two fake humans, chatting about mundane things and another lapse into their obsession with human culture and entertainment. The outer god reached into its bag to free the shantuk, and in a demonstration of the thing's ability to freely manipulate life, transformed the bird-like creature into a bicycle-like, two-wheeled motor car, and though it boasted limited room, I was already seated upon the oddly angled thing with the creature in front of me. As the bicycle took off at greater speed than I expected, my head snapping back from the recoil of the quick acceleration, I believe I caught a glimpse of something I should not have out of the limited vision of my tightly shut eyes. It was a fleeting vision of something directly in front of the bicycle. Before a halting stop, drew my eyes closed once again. It was a creature, vaguely humanoid, with writhing black skin and powerful-looking arms and legs. It had no head to speak of. Instead it seemed as if a tentacle-like appendage sat atop its shoulders, accompanied by two longer tentacle-like things coming out its back. A red orb adorned its chest, vaguely reminiscent of a single great eye. It carried with it the same presence as the silver-haired thing, though notably less powerful, but nonetheless the instant glance of the thing sent a chill through my heart. What that thing was, I do not know. Had I not seen such an eldritch abomination before? Did that very form not whisper to me in my dreams? That very presence not bid me to sign my name in blood in some accursed book? It took the same appearance as the visions in my mind's eye if I started too long into those deep green eyes of my companion, though I knew it was not the same being as the companion was directly in front of me on the bike. When I was able to collect myself, That black form I thought I had seen was nowhere to be found. When questioning the thing in front of me, it quickly dismissed my inquisition with a mockery of an answer, as if trying to keep me from too deeply considering the subject. I still believe I heard the thing exclaim upon seeing that black figure, words whose meaning I wish was whisked away by the fierce wind on that bicycle due to their implication. We returned to my house, now occupied by two deities, I an outer god and a great old one, I that malignant, calculating Yalthoop and the fiery titan Sithugila. How long could I shield my sanity from these two things? With my family due back at any time, another interplanetary incident worthy of their attention at my feet, and the constant false advances from the fate girl tugging at my shoulder, I feared I would eventually succumb to madness. All I could do was retreat to my room and subject myself to the whispers in my head, the scratching in the walls, and that terrible void that awaited me in my dreams. End of chapter.